Well, everybody, sadly, we haven't seen him for a while. It's not his fault, it's mine. Major Tom Haviland from the United States. What a pleasure it is to have you back. You'll have all our people absolutely smiling, and I can see you're smiling at the other end. Welcome from the other side of the pond. Let's get into it.
All right, Liz, thanks for having me back on the show. It's been a while since we talked last. I'm the retired U.S. Air Force major that's taken it upon myself to do these embalmer surveys over the last 3 years. And you and I have talked about one or two of them, but I've done one since then. It wrapped up in December of 2024, just a few months ago. And unfortunately, Liz, the results of this latest survey amongst the embalmers is still bad news. So what I'd like to do is we'll go into the slides in just a minute, but just to refresh your audience, their memory, basically what I did is worked with a friend of mine in Northeastern Ohio who's a Survey Monkey expert, and we put out a Survey Monkey survey, and we sent it to 50 national, regional, and state funeral director associations all over the world, each with hundreds of members underneath them, asking them to send the survey down to their active embalmers to take the survey. We also looked up the email addresses for over 1,700 funeral homes around the world and sent it to them directly. We concentrated on the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia and New Zealand. And so we're going to go over and take a look at the results of this latest survey. So I'll go ahead and I'll share screen here and like see if I can get it up, and we'll talk about it, Liz.
That's fantastic.
Okay, can you see that on your screen?
We can see it loud and clear.
Okay. Like I said, I ran this survey basically in from the 11th of November of 2024 through the 14th of December, and sent out emails asking these associations and funeral home directly to respond to the survey. Let's see if I can go over here and do anything with it. It must still be loading up. While it's loading up, Liz, hold on a second here. Let's see.
It's okay.
Yeah, it says, I think I'm still getting a swirling circle saying that it doesn't want to seem to advance. We'll talk about it while it's loading. So I ran the survey, like I said, starting on the 11th of November through the 14th of December. And what we did is we asked the embalmers again this year, are you seeing the white fibrous clots in the year 2024? And of the 301 embalmers that responded to the survey, Liz, 250 of them, 83%, so they're still seeing these white fibrous clots. And I'll show the audience here. This is what a sample looks like. You can see they're very ugly looking. Yeah. Embalmers, like I said, they've been seeing these ever since the years of COVID, and primarily since the rollout of the vaccines. Never saw these things before the years 2020 going forward. What they've seen in the past are basically what's called grape jelly clots, and they look just like dark grape jelly, dissolve easily in your hands. They've also seen something called chicken fat clots, which are yellowish in color, and they tear very easily. They're small, much different than these large white fibrous clots that are very rubbery and tough. They look like calamari, and they actually feel and stretch like rubber bands. Here's an even more spectacular example. And these came from Richard Hirschman, embalmer Richard Hirschman. Take a look at that one. That one is 5.5 inches long, Liz, and it's about 1/2 inch thick. This actually came out of the abdominal aorta, which is one of the largest blood vessels in the body. So these things are causing strokes and heart attacks, and it's really sad what they're doing. So yeah, it looks like I'm still not able to, I don't think, advance my slides. Over here on the left, it looks like I don't know if it's still loading up. Let me try another thing over here. We might have to just talk to the results of the survey. So what we did then is the next natural question that we asked the embalmers, Liz, after this is we asked them, in what percentage of your corpses in 2024 did you see the white fibrous clots? And the embalmers' responses, and there was an average of 27% of their corpses, Liz. These white fibrous clots are occurring in more than 1 out of every 4 corpses. So these things are prevalent. This is not a rare phenomenon, which is kind of scary, right? Because if you're seeing it that high percentage of the dead, you wonder how many living people are walking around right now with these clots forming inside them, getting ready to have a stroke or a heart attack someday when that, clot completely blocks a blood vessel, an artery or vein, and then causes your stroke or heart attack. So I was actually hoping to see that percentage go down this year because, I said, well, most of the people took their COVID vaccines way back in 2021. And a lot of people passed on the boosters in subsequent years. So I was hoping that as we got further and further away from people taking their last jabs, we might see the percentage of corpses with the clots go down. But that's not what we're seeing. And later on, we'll talk about the fact that a reason why I think that might be happening. So the next question we asked them is, did you see the large whitish fibrous clots in a higher percentage of corpses in 2024 than you saw in 2023? And of the 301 embalmers that responded, 155 of them said that it was about the same. 59 embalmers said they saw less clots in 2024. And 47 embalmers said they saw more clots in 2024. So it all kind of averaged out. They were seeing them in about the same percentage of corpses between the years 2023 and 2024. One of the things I forgot to mention at the beginning is this year's survey, we did get more responses than ever. We got 301 responses, which was great. The first year we did the survey, we only got 179 responses. The next year we got 269 responses. And then this last year, we got 301 responses for 2024. So we're going in the right direction, Liz. But despite, I sent the survey out to actually about 5,000 embalmers could have responded to the survey because of all the associations and funeral homes that I sent it to. But so, it's still a minority that are responding to the survey. And it's kind of bizarre, isn't it? Because you would expect, as they're seeing this in their embalming rooms, like I said, 83% of the embalmers in this survey said they're seeing the clots. You would expect, and they know that's giving them fits because when they find a body riddled with the clots, it takes them about an hour longer to do an embalming. Typically, before they saw these white fibrous clots, it would take about an hour and a half to do an embalming, get the body prepared. Now it's taking about 2.5 hours when they find a body riddled with the clots. So it's causing frustration for the embalmers. One of the big disappointments was once again, the British Institute of Embalmers in your neck of the woods refused to take the survey. In fact, here's a letter I got from the British Institute of Embalmers.
Can I just come into you on that? I actually wrote 3 times asking for interviews, etc., and I got turned down 3 times because literally there is nothing to see here with our members.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it, Liz? This doesn't seem to be working on this particular thing, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing here so we can have a bigger window with each other. So, one of the other big disappointments, Liz, is my best performer from last year, the Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association. When I did my 2023 survey with them, I know they responded because I asked them to send out the survey, and within the next 2 days, I got 125 responses from embalmers across the state of Pennsylvania, which was fantastic, right? This year, however, at the end of 2024, their organization declined to participate in the survey. And this is despite the fact that their own president, Chris Calvi, said that he's seeing unusual clotting in his corpses. Now, go figure that. Why in the world would they, not participate in the survey when their own president says he's seeing the clots and unusual clotting? So it's very, very bizarre.
Can you just stop for 1 second? Could you put up again the 2 files that you had there on the of the blood clots themselves? Because when we were sharing the screen, you couldn't really see them. Put up the test tubes again, Major Tom. Yeah. There's the. Oh, I can't believe that.
And like I said, take a look at this one. This one's the really huge one that Richard Hirschman gave to me. Look at the size of that clot.
It's frightening.
It is frightening, isn't it?
This is really frightening.
Yeah. And like I said, these embalmers have 20 or 30 years of experience, never seen this phenomenon before. until the last 5 years, since the years of COVID.
And in
Slightly,
young people as well.
yes, it's an equal opportunity killer, Liz. It strikes all age groups. So not good.
Thank
So
you.
one of the next questions we asked the embalmers is, we started trying to this year to dive into the psychology a little bit. We said, hey, do other embalmers that you talk to say that they're seeing the large white fibrous clots as well? Of the 301 embalmers, 185 of them, almost 2/3, said that yes. When they talked about the other embalmers, those embalmers admit they're seeing the clots too. About 20%, about 50 of the embalmers said no. The other embalmers say they're not seeing the clots. But then there were 66 embalmers that said, we don't talk about this. So it's like, what's going on here? You know, it's telling me that most of them will admit to each other they're seeing the clots, but they don't want to come out and talk about it publicly. That's why we only have a few people like Richard Hirschman here in the United States, John O'Looney there in your country, you know, that have spoken out about these white fibrous clots. And it's sad that more embalmers didn't come forward early when they started seeing these. So one of the next questions we asked Liz was, do you observe any microclotting in the corpses that you embalmed in the year 2024? And microclotting is, the embalmers don't call it that. They call it what looks like coffee grounds or dirty blood. And as they're draining the blood off the corpse and trying to get the formaldehyde in, they see what looks like coffee grounds and the blood coming off. And this could be an indication of a phenomenon called microclotting, which can be just as dangerous as these large white fibrous clots, because microclotting occurs at the capillary level, and it blocks the exchange of oxygen at the lungs, and then the carrying that oxygen to all the major organs of your body, you know, including your brain, your eyes. And we know a lot of people have been suffering from brain fog and vision problems. They probably have a case of microclotting, where microclotting's stopping the exchange of oxygen to those vital organs. So again, we asked them, okay, well, what percentage of your corpses have this microclotting in them? And Liz, it was not a good situation either. About the answer was 22% of the corpses, 1 out of 5 corpses has the microclotting phenomenon. Now, this is a phenomenon embalmers did used to see before the years of COVID and the vaccines, but in way less than 5% of their corpses. Typically in people that had heavy chemotherapy. But so this is at least a quadrupling of this effect. So you have the white fibrous clots they've never seen before, and then you have the microclotting that's now been quadrupled since the years of the pandemic. Another question we asked the embalmers is, have you watched any of the online videos, such as things like you and I are doing right now, or the movie Died Suddenly, or read articles about the white fibrous clots? And sadly, even though 83% of the embalmers responding to the survey said they're seeing the clots, only about 1/3 of them, only 96 out of the 301, said they've been watching these kind of documentaries and articles about it. So I don't understand this lack of curiosity in their own profession about what's going on. It's really bizarre, isn't it? It's strange. One of the next questions we asked them is, are you a member of a professional embalmer or funeral director association? And 246 of the 301 said yes. So, the vast majority, over 80%, are members of a professional organization. And we asked them that question to set them up for this last question. We said, has your professional embalmer or funeral director association ever discussed the large white fibrous clots? Liz, only 52 of the 301 embalmers said yes. Less than 20% of the funeral director associations around the world are talking about this at either their annual meetings or their monthly or quarterly newsletters. It's really strange. Now, on the good side, on a good note, I've been invited by Mr. Taylor Moore, who's the president of the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association, to speak at their annual conference. It's coming up here on the June 8th, just south of Nashville, Tennessee. And they recognize that this has been an issue for the last 4 years, and I think they're starting to get scared now. They realize it's not going away, so they want me to come and talk to their entire membership at that conference about the results of my survey and some of the things that are going on with these clots. So that's telling me good news that the dam is starting to break, and this thing is, I think, getting ready to go mainstream soon. One of the things we do at the end of all of our surveys, Liz, is we allow the embalmers to make comments. We have an optional comment section. They don't have to respond if they don't want to, but we give them the chance to let us know what they're seeing in their embalming room. And what's interesting is throughout all the surveys I've ever done with these embalmers, I never mentioned the words COVID or COVID vaccine in any of the questions or the instructions to the survey. I don't want to lead the witness. I try to stay as unbiased as possible. But despite that fact, The embalmers, a lot of them love to talk about the vaccines, either implicating them as the cause of these clots or defending the vaccines as, hey, they're not causing these clots. So let me read a few of these to you. Okay, I'll read about 3 of them to you. Here's one from the state of Georgia. It says the majority of cases of decedents I've embalmed who present the large white fibrous clots were in the age range from late 50s to early 70s. Microclotting and grape jelly clots have also been observed almost on every case who have hospitalized prior to death. So that leads me to believe that these things obviously could be the cause of death. You can see how this, gets in a vital organ, right, or vital blood vessel. It can stroke you out or give you a heart attack. Here's one from the state of Kentucky. I've been an embalmer since the early 2000s for an embalming service. I've never seen anything like this before the spring of 2021. I have experienced the white fibrous clots that have stretched out to 20 inches long. It's like battling a rubber band. My right hand and elbow has suffered from these clots. I've recently spoken with a physician who has been hearing about this in his field. We are in the same agreement in that we feel we know where this has come from. I think he's talking about the vaccine there. Let me read one more to you. This is a gentleman from Canada with an opposite opinion, Liz. He says, since the very beginning of COVID, the pandemic, which I assume this survey is pertaining to, I have not noticed any clots, fibrous structures, or contents in the blood outside of the ordinary. It is also not our responsibility as embalmers to take note of these cases, record, or share any information, as it is confidential medical information that breaches the privacy clause we have with our client families. Videos and articles such as died suddenly or anti-vaccine, COVID-denying propaganda that is based in no actual fact other than to spread right-wing beliefs and fear-mongering in the public. What do you think of that comment, Liz?
Well, what I have always thought about science is when things change, people should be taking note and asking questions. Now, I suspect that gentleman is seeing exactly the same as everybody else.
Yeah, and I take big issue with what he said there. When an embalmer finds like a gunshot wound or a stab wound in a corpse, he is legally obligated to notify the police that he's found that. I think similarly, these embalmers, when they find these unusual white fibrous clots, they should be ethically bound to tell the authorities what they're seeing about, right?
Well, I would have thought the coroner would be the first place you'd go to say, I don't know what's been certified as the cause of death, but we've not seen these before. Why is this not appearing on certificates?
Exactly. And coroners, by the way, the embalmers think that the coroners a lot of times are missing these, because coroners, when they look at corpses, a lot of times they're looking for foul play. And if they don't see that, then they may, like in an overdose case, they'll be looking for toxicology, things like that. But they'll examine organs like the liver, the spleen, the heart. But they very rarely go through other parts of the vascular system. So the embalmers believe that the coroners are missing a lot of these clots that are in other parts of the vascular system. And it's the embalmers that are finding them, obviously, because they're the ones that are trying to put fluid throughout the entire vascular system. But, to me, it's just unethical. And getting back to the British Institute of Embalmers, for example, they have on their own website, they have a code of ethics. And in that code of ethics, key point number 4 says they're supposed to be doing research, right, and looking into it whenever they see an unusual anomaly in embalming. So I believe that they're violating their very own code of ethics by not investigating this.
Can I just say, I did actually point that out in my letter.
I know you did, Liz. Thank you so much for doing that. And my insider who's a member of the British Institute of Embalmers, he stood up at one of their last annual meeting last October and said, hey, are we going to take the survey, the one we're talking about here, by this retired U.S. Air Force major? And what they said at the meeting is, they said, well, we're going to table it and we'll talk about it in our executive meeting. So they didn't want to decide there in front of the entire membership. They went off, and about a week or two later, they decided, no, we're not going to take the survey. They did it in the dark of night without the input of their membership. So that's what's going on. The leadership is putting the kibosh on these things. And it's just sad because unless we know more about it, then we can't take steps to stop it, right?
Absolutely. So, Major Tom, so that was your 2024 survey. We've got the 2023 one. And if you can actually send that over to me, I can put it up on the site. Is that possible? If you can send me the copy of that. So that's 2024. Now I think we're going to have a little break for a minute now, and then we're going to record and go on to recording number 2. So we'll have a little break, and thank you for doing 2024. And we'll just stop for a second.